wrote in his notes this morning that Higgins could be franchise tagged for the second year in a row by the Bengals. I wouldn't rule that out. And that also doesn't mean he can't come to the Patriots. Could be a tag and trade. Bengals may say we don't want to lose him for nothing. So that's certainly a possibility. There is the chance that they keep him as well. Joe Burrow has been, and he did it again Super Bowl week, very insistent that he wants the Bengals to keep both T. Higgins and Jamar Chase, who also needs a new contract. So there's that chance. But if he does become available, Jason Lockenfor wrote this week for the Washington Patriots, he was told by one general manager, I think he's going to be a Patriot. Patriots owner Robert Kraft took a lot of bleep for not spending any money, rightfully so. So I hear they really want this guy. And in that same piece, Lockenfor mentioned multiple executives predict Higgins will land over a $30 million a year contract. Luke Graham has more on 98.5thesportshub.com if you want to check that out. I'm still not 100% convinced Higgins becomes available. I feel better about it than I did during the season. I know I shot it down a lot during the season, but I feel like the Bengals not making the playoffs, maybe an opportunity to reset, that sort of thing. If he does become available, I want to see. I want to see them explore the trade market. I want them to get the best possible player available. They shouldn't really be shortchanging themselves. Anything short of giving up the 4th overall pick, you're looking to make a deal with the assets you have. But I do think Higgins would be a good option. I do think if they can land Higgins, they have solidly checked that coverage dictating receiver box that they haven't had checked for years.
Yeah. And I think if you sign Higgins, but kind of a question to you, if you do sign Higgins, do you still address the receiver position in the draft, just later in the draft, or do you not really roll with what you have, but kind of, I guess you got to make a decision early, but maybe understand, like, okay, with this guy now on the field, does it loosen things up for the guys that we have? Does it make it easier on them? And we don't have to just fill the room with a bunch of new receivers, because somebody's going to have to go. With every guy you add, someone's going to have to come out. So I'm wondering if they do get him, does that mean they're done at the receiver position for now? And two, what kind of impact would you see from him on the rest of the offense? What kind of offense would you expect them to have to run with a guy like T. Higgins now on the outside?
So I don't think those two are mutually exclusive in the sense that I think you can add Higgins, get that impact, and still add another receiver. Now, the type matters. You don't want guys that are redundant and aren't going to be on the field at the same time. So, like, you're not going to sign T. Higgins and then draft Ted McMillan.
Yeah,
Ted McMillan's ceiling is basically T. Higgins. So you're not, especially in the Josh McDaniels offense that focuses so much on the middle of the field, you're not going to have these two big outside guys. That doesn't mean there's not a role for one of them. There absolutely is. But if you draft T. Higgins and you still want a receiver at the top of the draft, it's going to be a guy like Luther Burden, Emeka Egbuka. You can still get a bigger guy if you want to draft a guy like Jalen Noel as like a big slot, as a power slot, or Jack Betch as a power slot, or not Jalen Noel, Jaden Higgins, the Iowa State guys. I'm going to get them mixed up all spring. Get ready for it. You still draft like a big power slot if you're trying to recapture that Jacoby Myers thing, but you want guys that can play complementary. Maybe they want to get that smaller, quicker slot. There aren't as many options for that guy in free agency. If you go to the draft, guys like Xavier Restrepo, that is where Jalen Noel would come in, the other Iowa State receiver, players like that. So I absolutely think they could bring in another receiver. I don't know that I want them to draft multiple guys if they were to sign T. Higgins. Even if not, like, because there needs to be enough room on the roster, and especially for the younger guys, they need to play in order to get better. We saw that this year, how it hampers young players when they can't get on the field regularly. So when you look at the wide receiver room, Pop Douglas is going to be back, and he's going to play at least some role. He may end up being like the third guy, but he's going to be back. I know people don't want to hear this. I think Jalen Polk's probably going to be on the team.
I think so, too.
That doesn't mean he's going to play a lot, but second-round pick, usually you get a second year. He'll at least be here in camp, I'm saying, right? I think, and this goes back to the last segment, too, about the expectations. I think a lot of people are expecting like 60, 70% of the roster to turn over. You start getting up to 40, 45%. That's a pretty significant offseason.
Yeah.
There's not going to be as much turnover in this 1 year as I think people maybe want to see. It's probably going to be 2 to 3 years to get that kind of, 70, 80% roster turnover. But you're going to pop Douglas. Jalen Polk's probably going to be here. I think Kendrick Bourne's going to have a good shot to make the team. I think Josh McDaniels likes him. So that's 3. Let's say you sign T. Higgins, that's 4. You draft somebody, that's 5. That's a full room.
Yeah.
Now maybe
you Keyshawn Boutte, you still got Baker.
Right. Keyshawn Boutte's going to be competing for a spot. Javon Baker's going to be competing for a spot. To me, it's quality over quantity. Mm-hmm. Get that guy at the top of the room. Do that and get that set. And then you can build out the rest of the room behind him. But the last couple of years, they drafted 2 receivers in 23. They drafted 2 receivers last year with signings mixed in. We're going to get as many guys as possible and throw it all at the wall and see what happens. That's not an answer to me. You got to get definitive players at the top of that depth chart and then move from there.
Yeah, and I think you're right about that. When you have a T. Higgins, you got the guy at the top. I think it then dictates the rest of the roster and the rest of how you're going to play things out after that. It's going to be real interesting watching these guys fight for those final spots, though. I mean, it's not Tyquan Thornton again. Like, let's see if he's going to make it, see if he's going to do something. Right. I think we're not going to be so much focused on the bottom of the guys making it in, but I think it's going to be a pretty interesting competition, especially when you see what kind of offense McDaniels is going to run. Who fits in that better? I mean, it could be, like you said, people don't want to hear the whole situation with Polk. Polk could be a guy that he stands out in the offense. It just fits him. You just never know. And maybe his confidence is up. He's feeling good going into it, and he has that jump, which we've seen from other receivers over the years. When changes are made around him, I always think of guys like Nico Collins in Houston. He wasn't his rookie. I think he had like 23 catches or something like that. Next thing you know, Slowett comes in. They get a new quarterback. All of a sudden, the kid just explodes, and we're looking at Nico Collins as one of the better guys in the league. You just never know. But it's going to be fun to watch. It's going to be interesting. And you mentioned one guy that I think is, to me, he just looks like a McDaniels guy, and that's Restrepo from Miami. I just think a guy like him, shifty as he is, I think he would be a good fit for somebody that can pick up injury. Now, is he going to be available when they want to get him? I don't know about that. But I think he'll be a good player, and so I think somebody that'll be pretty solid to fit this offense, even if you get T. Higgins or if you don't.
To go back to something you said there about the competition, like it's been the wide receiver room's been competitive the past couple of years in camp, and I think because it has been. It's a bunch of players who are all close in ability, competing for fewer spots than there are, and like we look at that and we say, oh, it's a competitive room. I'm not going to say that that's bad, but you want that at the bottom of the depth chart. You don't want that to be the whole depth chart. I think that's the difference. This is a really interesting name. I hadn't thought of this. I don't know if I maybe missed something about him being available, but Walter in Boston with an idea of something they can do in the wide receiver room. Walter.
Yeah, I was just saying that because say if you get Higgins and you luckily get a tackle in the free agency, right? And then with the first trick, you just tackle a DN. If you can get one of them third picks for Christian Kirk, you have a legit 1 and a 2. Kirk can give you 1,000. Like, especially in Josh's type system, I think he'll probably have his best years in Josh because the athleticism and the way he plays fits in Josh's system. And he's better than Strepo as far as he can go down the field and get open real quick.
Yeah.
So I just wonder what you guys think about that.
Walter, great.
Thank you. Good call.
Great name to bring up. And he is a pre-agent, so he's under contract through the 2025 season. He's 28 years old. I don't know if Jacksonville is going to be trading off players around Trevor Lawrence. I haven't seen anything about him being available. They're trying to get back, and I don't think that they're going to do a full rebuild with Liam Cohn. I think they're going to try to build up from what they have because obviously they made some progress last year with a guy like Brian Thomas Jr., but if Christian Kirk is available, I would absolutely make that call if I'm the Patriots. Yeah, there are some like Twitter rumors I'm looking like he's kind of a cap casualty candidate.
Oh, okay.
Which they would save $10 million if they move him. So that's not insignificant.
Yeah, that's a lot of money. Look, hey, I'd take him. I mean, where did he fall on the depth chart? You mentioned Brian Thomas. Who was the other guy that was opposite? There was one other guy they had picked up a couple years ago that had a good year under with Trevor Lawrence. I can't think of it. It was Kirk, and it was one other guy they had picked up, but both of them had almost 1,000-yard seasons before Brian Thomas got there. I can't think of the other guy. And they went and got Gabe Davis from Buffalo.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure. There was one other guy there, so I'm not sure if Kirk, how far he fell on the depth chart. But I mean, with Brian Thomas, I think it made somebody's going to be expendable. So yeah, if that kid's available, you absolutely would go get a guy like that. I mean, how similar is he to T. Higgins? But I think you end up with two good guys on the outside. If you do that, now you're really rolling. But yeah, I absolutely would look into that if that's a possibility.
Well, I think Kirk can play on the inside in Josh McDaniels' offense. I think he is a complementary player, absolutely, to T. Higgins. And, you're buying low. He had a down year last year. He was a little banged up, but that's something you take advantage of. I just think he would make sense. We'll see if he actually becomes available. Maybe he just gets cut and they can sign him, but I think he makes sense. So that's good a good name to bring up. Good job by the caller there.